My name is Emmanuel Nwosu. I died for 30 days. I woke up to betrayal. But I rose with purpose. So to you watching this, I leave you with one truth. Don't wait till you lose everything before you realize what matters most. Protect your peace, guard your legacy, and never, ever let betrayal define your future. The day I woke up, I didn't recognize my own life. Everything I owned was gone. My house, my cars, even my clothes. And the worst part? My in-laws were smiling like nothing happened. Ah, doctor! He's awake! He's awake! That's what I heard first. Not clearly, but like a faint echo from far away. My head was heavy. My body felt like stone. I tried to open my eyes, but even my eyelids betrayed me. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what had happened. All I could feel was pain. Pain in my chest, in my legs, in my soul. I was in the hospital. That's what they told me later. I had been in a coma for 30 days. A whole month. My name is Emmanuel, and what happened to me, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Before the accident, I was doing well. I built my life from scratch, hustled day and night in Lagos to make sure my family never lacked anything. I wasn't rich, no, but I was comfortable. I had 3 cars, a nice duplex, 2 plots of land, and a small but growing logistics business. My wife, Adaora, was the love of my life, or so I thought. We had been married for 4 years, and we were planning to have our first child. At least, that was the plan. But life has a strange way of showing you people's true colors. The accident happened on a rainy Friday night. I had just closed from work and was heading home. A drunk trailer driver rammed into my car on 3rd Mainland Bridge. Boom. Everything went black. I don't even remember the crash. Just 1 second I was driving, and the next, I was gone from the world. They said it was a miracle I survived. My skull cracked, my ribs broken, internal bleeding. I was on life support for weeks. And during that time, the people I called family, the people I trusted, they were busy tearing my life apart. You see, I come from a humble background. My parents are late, my siblings are scattered, and I was the only one who really made it out of poverty. When I married Adaora, her family welcomed me, yes, but with that plastic kind of smile. You know, the kind that hides envy and silent judgment. I ignored all the warning signs. I told myself, they're just trying to protect their daughter. With time, they'll love me. With time, I said. From the moment I entered Coma, Adaora became silent. She didn't call my friends. She blocked my business partners. She told the hospital I had no family, no next of kin, only her. She said she was the only one allowed to make decisions. And then they began to sell everything. The first was my plot in Ikorodu. N3 million. Sold it like groundnut. Then my Camry, my Corolla, my Highlander. One by one, gone. My cousin Chike tried to reach out. He said he wanted to know how I was doing. She blocked him. My best friend Femi tried to visit. She told the hospital he was a scammer. And my logistics business? She handed it over to her elder brother, Ifeanyi, who sold all the delivery bikes and told the riders to go and look for work elsewhere. No explanation. No accountability. Nothing. Meanwhile, I was lying there, fighting for my life, not knowing my whole world was collapsing. When I finally opened my eyes on the 30th day, I saw her face. She was crying, holding my hand. "Baby, thank God, oh, you're back. I was so scared," she said with that fake voice. I didn't even have the strength to ask questions, but something in her eyes told me something was wrong. In the following days, as I regained my strength, I noticed little things. No one came to visit me. Not Chike, not Femi, not even my lawyer. When I asked Adaora, she gave short answers. They're busy. They don't care. They just want your money. Something in me said, this woman is hiding something. So I waited. I pretended to be weak. I kept quiet. I watched. And one night, when she left her phone beside the bed to go home and shower, I picked it up with trembling hands, and what I saw shook me to my core. A WhatsApp group chat titled Emmanuel's Assets, filled with her siblings, pictures of my house, my cars, conversations like, Ifani, that land in Ikorodu, don go o, buyer wan do transfer this evening. Abeg na me go take that TV and generator, una don chop everything finish. He's not waking up, Jor. Doctors say chance na 10%. Make we use the opportunity. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking. My eyes wet. My mouth dry. I just dropped the phone and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't just betrayal. This was evil. They buried me before I even died. And from that moment, I knew, when I get out of this hospital, I'm coming back for everything they took. Slow, deep breath. God kept me alive for a reason. They thought I would never wake up. They thought they had won. But they forgot one thing. I built everything with my bare hands. And I could build again. But this time, I'd make sure they paid for every single thing they took from me. I didn't confront Adora immediately. No, I was weak, my body still healing, and my mind was on fire. I had to pretend like I knew nothing, like I was grateful, like I still loved her. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Each time she brought me food, I smiled and said thank you. Each time she sat beside my bed and whispered sweet lies into my ears, I nodded like a fool. I studied her face. I studied her eyes. And I saw no guilt, not even a drop of remorse. It was like she believed everything she did was justified. You were gone, she said one night as she fed me like a baby. I didn't know what to do. People were pressuring me. The hospital needed money. We needed money. Lie. I later found out that my company insurance had already covered most of my bills. But she hid it. She told the hospital to stay quiet about it. And she used my health crisis as an excuse to start auctioning my life to the highest bidder. Every night after she left the hospital, I would cry into my pillow. Not because of my broken bones, but because of my broken heart. I had given everything to this woman. I treated her like a queen. When we were dating, I used to take night buses from Lagos to Enugu just to see her for one day. I bought her parents a generator when they had none. I helped her brother gain admission. I even paid for her sister's wedding gown. And yet, she repaid me with betrayal. Anyway, 3 weeks after I woke up, the doctors discharged me. I was still weak, but I could walk slowly with a cane. Adaora took me home, or rather, what was left of my home. When we got to the compound, I noticed the gate was different. Painted. The security man was new. I asked Adaora, "Where's Musa?" The man who had been my gatekeeper for 5 years. She shrugged and said, "He said he was tired. He left." Another lie. When I entered the house, I almost collapsed. The sitting room was empty, just one plastic chair and a small table. My Samsung 70-inch TV was gone. My sound system, gone. The glass center table, gone. Even the wall clock was missing. My heart skipped a beat. What happened here? I asked her, pretending to be surprised. She smiled and said, "Ah, baby, I had to sell some things to pay the hospital. I told you now, but don't worry, we'll buy new ones soon." That was when I knew. She didn't even respect me enough to cover her tracks. My bedroom had only a mattress on the floor. The wardrobe was half empty. Even my clothes, my suits, my native wear, my designer shoes, all gone. My documents, scattered. My certificates, missing. My business files, vanished. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling. The same ceiling I once admired when I first built the house with so much joy. And then at midnight, my phone rang. I had secretly retrieved my SIM card from an old number Adaora thought I had thrown away. I inserted it into a small phone I hid in my bag before leaving the hospital. When I picked up, it was Femi, my best friend. "Emma, thank God, I heard you're alive." "Guy, I tried everything to see you. Your wife blocked me everywhere." "Bro, they sold everything, oh. Your house in Lekki, your company, even the bank account, they emptied it." I closed my eyes. My head started pounding again. Then he said something that shocked me even more. "Emma, your logistics company? Afani sold the bikes to some smugglers in Benin. And guess what? They were caught. Now the police are looking for you. They think it's your operation." I couldn't breathe. They weren't just greedy. They were wicked. They were trying to destroy me completely. Even my name. I told Femi to meet me secretly the next morning. At 5 a.m., I sneaked out of the house while Adaora was asleep. I met Femi at a small barbershop in Yaba. He brought all the proof. Documents, texts, screenshots of conversations between Adaora's siblings, and even receipts of the things they sold. Then he handed me a small brown envelope. "This is from Chike," he said. "He's been investigating on his own. Bro, they even tried to forge your signature and sell your last remaining land in Abeokuta." My hands trembled. I was quiet for almost 5 minutes. Then I said just one word: revenge. But not the kind you read in movies. Not violence. Not shouting. No. I was going to use the same weapon they used against me. Calmness and calculation. Over the next few weeks, I started regaining my strength. I told Adaora I needed space to pray and heal mentally. She agreed. I moved into a small rented room Femi got for me in Ajege, just to keep her and her family off my radar. Then I hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, my old university mate, Kelechi, who was now a rising legal beast in Lagos. We began to gather everything: bank records, property transfers, company files, even phone call recordings. Slowly, piece by piece, we were building a case. And then, something unexpected happened. Adawara came to visit one day, crying crocodile tears. She knelt down and said, "Baby, please. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was confused. I thought you were going to die. They pressured me. I didn't know what to do." I just stared at her. I didn't say anything. Then she said it. "Baby, I'm pregnant." I looked her in the eye and asked, "Who's the father?" She froze. For the first time since I returned from the coma, she had no words. "Who's the father?" I asked her calmly, but inside me, I was boiling. My hands were shaking slightly, but I tucked them behind my back so she wouldn't see. She just stood there, kneeling, her eyes darting around like a thief caught red-handed. "What do you mean?" she stuttered. I leaned forward slowly and whispered, "You know exactly what I mean." Silence. Then tears. Real this time. She broke down crying on the cold, tiled floor of the one-room apartment. "I didn't plan for this, Emeka. I was lonely. Everyone said you were brain dead. They told me to move on." I didn't even blink. She finally confessed. The father of her unborn child was none other than Ifeanyi, her cousin. Yes, you read that right. The same Ifeanyi I trained as an apprentice in my company. The same Ifeanyi who once told me, "Oga, you be like father to me." That same snake. She said it started accidentally. The same way a building accidentally collapses when it's been ignored for years. I looked at her and said just one thing. "I want everything you took from me back." She stopped crying. She looked up with those red, swollen eyes and said, "It's not that simple." I turned my back and walked out of that room. From that day, war officially began. I called my lawyer that night and said, "We're going in." We filed charges: theft, fraud, falsifying documents, illegal transfer of property, and misappropriation of company assets. But I told my lawyer, "Do it quietly. I want them to feel safe until the rope tightens." Now, let me tell you what they didn't know. Before I went into coma, I had begun the process of changing ownership of all my properties to a trust account. I never completed it, but one property slipped through unnoticed. My Ikoyi duplex. That duplex had surveillance cameras. And guess what? They forgot to wipe the footage. Femi and I recovered it. The footage showed Adora's brothers moving furniture, appliances, and personal items during the second week of my coma. Not before. Not after. During. One video even showed Ifeanyi opening my safe with Adora standing beside him. My blood boiled. Still, I remained calm. I used that footage. I sent it anonymously to a journalist friend of mine who owed me a favor. By the next morning, the headline was everywhere. Shot: family loots dying man's properties. Shocking CCTV evidence emerges. Twitter went mad. Facebook exploded. YouTube channels picked it up. Reactions poured in. People started digging into their profiles. Commenters even found Adaora's Instagram and flooded it. She called me, crying again. "Please take the video down. Please, people are threatening me. They even found my workplace." I said, "Did you think of that when you were selling my father's house in the village?" "Yes. Turns out they sold my late father's house. The one he built in the 70s. My inheritance. They sold it for cheap and shared the money. Even gave some to their church to pray for Emeka's soul. Wickedness. So no, I wasn't going to help her. Then came the court letters. One by one, each of them got served. Adaora, Ifeanyi, her two brothers, even the estate agent who helped them with the fake documents. They thought I wouldn't wake up. They thought I would stay buried. But the thing is, I'm a builder, and builders don't stay down. We rise. One morning, Adora's eldest brother came to beg me. This was the same man who once told me I wasn't man enough because I didn't drink alcohol with them at parties. He knelt down in front of me. "Emeka Biko, forgive us. We were scared. We didn't know what else to do." I laughed, a slow, painful laugh. I said, "You sold my life because you were scared? Or because you were greedy?" Then I walked past him. Now here's where it gets even more painful. One of the properties they sold? My mother's retirement home. I bought it for her in Ibadan so she could live quietly after years of teaching. She died of a heart attack 2 weeks after they threw her out because Adaora told her she had no legal claim. That was the final straw. I added manslaughter by emotional distress to the lawsuit. And guess what? The court accepted it. Adaora was arrested. So was Ifeanyi. The others were on the run. But I made sure their names were blacklisted, their faces plastered on social media, the same way they sold my dignity when I couldn't speak for myself. I spent weeks rebuilding. Femi and I started a new company. People came out to support me. Strangers sent messages. Others donated equipment. But the pain? The pain never left. One night, I sat alone in my new office, looking at an old photo of me and Adaora on our wedding day. I smiled sadly and whispered, 30 days in coma, and you used that time to erase me. But I came back, stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than ever. Then I picked up the phone and said, Kelechi, let's finish this. I want full compensation and prison time for all of them. Because this wasn't just about property anymore. It was about justice. You know, sometimes justice doesn't come like thunder. It comes silently, like a shadow that walks behind you until you feel its cold hand on your neck. That was exactly what happened to Adaora and her gang of thieves. After I got the first court hearing date, I knew things would never be the same again. The media refused to let the story die. Man wakes from coma to find family stole everything. That headline trended for 2 weeks straight. But what they didn't know was that this wasn't just about punishment anymore. It was about reclaiming my name. So, when the court finally opened that day, I walked in slowly, dressed in a clean black suit. Not to impress, but to show I was no longer that weak, dying man in a hospital bed. I saw them all sitting there. Adaora, Ifeanyi, her brothers, looking like soaked chickens. Their eyes refused to meet mine. Even the lawyer they hired looked like he didn't believe in their lies. And me? I had Kelechi, the best lawyer in Lagos. Calm, sharp, deadly with words. The judge asked one question. Mr. Emeka, are you ready to proceed? I stood up slowly and said, yes, my lord, with all of my soul. The court played the CCTV footage from my Ikoyi duplex. We watched them moving things out like ants, greedy, fast, and without shame. Then came the signed documents, fake signatures, fraudulent transfers. But the bombshell? An audio recording from Adaora's brother. He called his friend and said, no worry. Emeka no day wake up again. We go share the thing sharp, sharp. When the judge heard that, he banged his gavel and declared, enough! The courtroom was dead silent. Adaora broke down again. She started crying, screaming, I didn't mean to. I was confused. I didn't know what to do. But it was too late. Her tears were no longer prayers. They were confessions. They tried to delay the case, claimed mental stress, claimed confusion, claimed they thought I died. But I was alive, standing, breathing, speaking. The judge gave his verdict. This court finds the defendants guilty of theft, fraud, and malicious conversion of assets. They are hereby sentenced to 5 years imprisonment without the option of fine, and all assets illegally acquired are to be returned to Mr. Emeka within 30 days. When I heard it, I didn't even smile. I just nodded quietly. My heart was calm, not because of revenge, but because justice had finally spoken. Adaora looked at me one last time as they took her away. Her belly was heavy now, 8 months pregnant. I looked at her, then at her stomach, and I said something only she could hear. That child will grow up knowing who you really are. As she was dragged away, she whispered, I'm sorry, but sorry doesn't rebuild broken homes. It doesn't bring back my mother. It doesn't replace the betrayal. After that day, I went quiet. I didn't speak to many people. I just worked, rebuilding from the dust. Femi became my right hand. We reopened a new firm, and clients started returning. But guess what hurt me the most? It wasn't the money. It wasn't even the betrayal. It was the silence of people who watched it happen and said nothing. Neighbors who helped them move. Friends who bought my things at cheap prices and never asked questions. That silence was louder than any gunshot. One day I walked back into the hospital where it all started. I wanted to see the nurse that cared for me, the one who held my hand when I was unconscious and prayed. Her name was Grace. She smiled when she saw me and said, you came back, for real. I nodded. We sat outside under the mango tree. I asked her something that had been in my heart for weeks. Why do people turn against you when you're at your weakest? She smiled softly and said something I will never forget. Because weakness exposes greed. And when people think you can't rise again, they show you their real face. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words kept echoing in my head. I realized I had a second chance at life, not just to rebuild what I lost, but to become more than I was. So I started speaking at churches, at schools, telling my story, warning people, when you're strong, build wisely, because one day you might fall, and who you trust will either lift you or bury you. My story went viral. People wrote letters. Young men told me how they were betrayed. Women cried after listening, saying they've lived through the same pain. But one letter stood out. It was from a boy, 16 years old. He wrote, "I watched your story. I cried. My own mother sold my father's land after he had stroke. I didn't know adults could be that cruel until I heard your voice. Thank you for making me believe I'm not alone." That letter, it broke me, but it also healed me, because in my suffering, I found purpose. They say scars don't fade. Maybe they're right, but scars also remind you that you survived, that you came through something that tried to break you and failed. 3 years passed after the court ruling. 3 long years. I got my properties back. Every last one of them. But the money? Money comes and goes. It was the peace I was chasing now. My name was cleared, my company was thriving again. People greeted me with respect now. Strangers even called me the man who rose after death. But deep down, I was still rebuilding something bigger than houses and cars. I was rebuilding me. One afternoon, as the sun gently kissed the windows of my office, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated. I almost didn't pick it. But I did. The voice on the other end was soft, shaky, female. "Emmanuel, it's me, Adora." Sound of heartbeat thudding slowly. I didn't say anything. She continued, "I know I have no right, but please, I need to see you." I almost ended the call, but something in her voice stopped me. So I said, "Where?" She told me. It was the Women's Rehabilitation Center in Ogun State. She had served her sentence. She was out, living quietly, and raising the child alone. I drove there the next week. Not for love, not for closure. I needed to face the last ghost in my past and put it to rest. When I saw her, she looked older, not in age, but in spirit. Her once proud eyes were now tired. Her skin, once glowing with pride, was pale. And beside her was a little boy. He looked just like me. I froze. He ran up to me and said, "Are you the man from the photo?" I looked at Adora. She nodded. "That's your father," she whispered. I knelt down slowly, looked the boy in the eyes, and something inside me cracked. I carried him. He didn't weigh much, but the pain he carried, the past, it felt heavier than bricks. Adora watched us silently. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't cry this time. She just said, "I won't lie, Emmanuel. I don't expect anything from you." I just wanted him to know where he came from. I looked at her for a long time. Then I said, "He came from pain, but I'll make sure he grows up in peace." I left that day with my son. His name was Zikora. It means show the world. And oh, I would show the world what redemption really looked like. Raising him healed me more than therapy ever could. Every morning he would say, "Good morning, Daddy," with a smile that made me forget every betrayal. But I still couldn't sleep most nights. I kept thinking, how did it all happen? How did love turn to hate? How did trust become greed? Until one day, I stood before a crowd, thousands of young people, and I told them, "You don't need to fall into a coma to find out who your real family is. Look around. Watch how people treat you when you have nothing. That's where the truth hides." The crowd was quiet. Tears rolled down faces. One woman screamed, "Tell it, brother." And I did. I told it all. No lies, no exaggeration, just the truth. Because the truth has power. The kind of power that no property, no inheritance, no money can ever match. Later that year, my story was turned into a book, then into a short film, then into a foundation, Scars and Survivors, dedicated to victims of betrayal and injustice. I started getting letters from people in countries I had never been to. One girl from Ghana wrote, "I wanted to poison myself after my aunt stole my inheritance, but I watched your video, and now I'm alive. I'm healing." When I read that, I cried, alone, silently, because in saving myself, I was now saving others. You see, this isn't just a story. It's a mirror. For every man who trusted too much, for every woman who gave everything and got nothing, for every soul who suffered in silence. My name is Emmanuel Nwosu. I died for 30 days. I woke up to betrayal. But I rose with purpose. So to you watching this, I leave you with one truth. Don't wait till you lose everything before you realize what matters most. Protect your peace, guard your legacy, and never, ever let betrayal define your future. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share. You never know who might be going through the same pain. Subscribe for more real African stories that inspire, heal, and awaken. Thank you for watching.